so much.
Step over by the microphone.
I was going to address it. I didn't. Thank you for that question. I know Kathy, Dana, Paul, Heather, Kevin, any of the survivors that went through this hell and still daily go through this hell. It's not over after Waco. Waco is with you every single day. You're shaving, you're brushing your teeth, Waco's there. Someone cuts you off and you get way angrier than you should, Waco's there. It's always with us. But guess what? I can tell you conclusively, the only thing that I agree with the federal government on is none of us want anybody to do any violence in the name of our group or the violence that the ATF and the FBI perpetrated and the lies that they're continuing to tell. Please do not take justice into your own hands and hurt innocent people. That is absolutely the worst thing you can do. Nobody wants that. Please, write your senator or congressman, even though I don't really believe that's going to work. Contact us to the website, wacosurvivors.com. We'll talk with you, we'll work with you. There's a lot of people that I know are very depressed, very sad, and very angry that reach out to me all the time. And the best part of this for me is I get to talk to those people and say, you're not alone. And don't do anything stupid. I love you. And the people that I know that survive this love you. And if we can still go through this, then you can too. You can go through whatever pain you're having. We'll get you help. You know, I can point you in directions, books to read, things that you can help yourself. Just don't take all that anger and use it against innocent people. That's it. Oh, she wants me to ask you if you have any other questions.
We're not going to do with Fox 44 News, and don't worry, we're local. We don't buy like the national one. So we've been talking about, the recurring theme of new media, the disadvantages and the advantages of it. So why is now the time to clear up these misconceptions and these misinformations? And how can we trust that the information that's being presented to us today as young journalists is credible in comparison to the books or the documentaries we've been seeing?
Yeah, that's a very complicated question. just try, do the sniff test, man. If it sounds a little bit too radical on any side, there's probably another side that needs to be considered. What was the first thing you said? Because that was...
Pretty much saying why is now the time to...
Great, that's great. Because we're in danger of a civil war. And I never thought that I would live to see the anger, the miscommunication that we're in right now, the strife between the sides. I mean, I love this country. I know it sounds crazy, but I love this country. I was born here, I was brought up here. Every time I go out and I meet someone on the street, how are you today? How are you today? It's people are beautiful. Many people can, recently, if you read the social media, you get a lot of haters out there, you get a lot of trolls. You can't listen to the comments sometimes. People they're gonna hate to hate. Those are the ones that have the biggest mouths, unfortunately. I don't think I know how to answer your question. Just do, I know how to answer your question. I'll give you an example. I thought that after this documentary that happened, that it was going to change everything. All the stuff that the series did in humanizing people, and there's a faction of them trying to change it around again and kind of blame all the survivors for even being there. And but I did a recent interview with NPR in Houston, and if they don't change what I said, the questions were phenomenal. And I was able to go very deep with this particular journalist, and it went very smoothly and very well. The questions were far better than they were 20, 30 years ago. So I think you are learning. I think we all are learning, and we're learning to, here's what it is. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Before you judge them, put yourself in their shoes and try to figure out, why did they go through this? Who is this person really? Before I say that they're a cultist, or before I say that they're right wing or they're left wing. Try to figure out why it is they feel the way they do. You might be surprised at the answer, and it might change your article for the better. That's what I've discovered.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, please.
We all three have something to say. Can you have the mic, please?
Say it at the mics, please.
Please at the mic.
Thank you.
To respond directly to your question about how the new media can be more assured of getting accurate information. Well, as a historian, we look for what? Primary sources. We use primary sources. So the negotiation tapes, 51 days of phone conversations between the Branch Davidians and the FBI, those are primary sources. Now, on that back table, I don't have all 51 days of negotiations. What I've given you are about 6 portals, single sheets, that if you go back and take them with you and you look at them, they will lead you to a treasure trove of information. So if you really want to do a program, write a book, do an article, then you go to those primary sources. They're available. I give them to you. Why are they available now? They existed back then, but now with the internet and with the computerized systems we have, with all this that's going on now, there's really no excuse. It's all there for you. Go and you'll be amazed. I have to say this, can you imagine, because I'm a historian and I like to study apocalyptic groups and mystics, Joan of Arc. Go back to her. I've always liked her. So you go back to Joan of Arc. Here she is, believing that she has these voices directing her to do something for the kingdom of France, right? You know the story. You probably saw the movie The Messenger. Well, in that movie and in history, she believes she has this. Then she's captured and she's on trial. We don't have any recordings of what she said. iPhones were not invented in 1400. We don't have any videos or audios. But David Koresh also believed that he could hear revelations from heaven. Not every day, not all the time, but occasionally. He believed he could. That doesn't mean we believe Joan of Arc really did, or David really did, but they believed it. But we don't have any recordings of Joan of Arc, but we have recordings of David explaining to the FBI that the reason we're going to wait is because God has revealed that to us. That's primary source material to get at what David is actually saying. Whereas what you hear in those days in the old media was, oh, he says he's God. No, he doesn't say he's God. He says that he does receive these messianic visions. Anyway, go to the primary sources, and you have portals back there for you.
Stuart Wright, everybody. Thank you, Bill.
One way you might get at the truth is to look at the social science peer-reviewed publications, right, where it has to go through vigorous peer review before you can get it in print. And I'm talking about professional journals, right? So Kathy and I and a group of scholars have for 30 years been doing a deep dive in this research. I've got a list of my publications which I'm happy to send you. Most of them are in PDF. If you reach out to me by email, I'm happy to send you anything that you ask for. But I have a couple of publications here that I brought that you can have access to, and one of them is a piece I published in the Journal of Terrorism and Political Violence, in which I identified 16 violations of the FBI's own protocols at Waco. Turns out that their training for how to conduct a hostage barricade incident are superb. They've been teaching police from around the world at Quantico since the 70s, the 1970s. And I thought maybe their playbook was lousy. It turns out they've got excellent research, but when they got to Waco, they threw the book out. 16 violations, right? So I had to come to the conclusion that it was a government massacre. And what other conclusion do you come to? If you have one violation or two or three maybe, it's incompetence or mistakes, but 16? I mean, you come to your own conclusion. And so I invite you to read the article and tell me, tell me if my research is on spot.
No, I didn't offend with my question, I just wanted that extra layer of clarification.
Oh, never offended by questions.
Perfect.
That's one of my favorite pieces of work too, is by the way, what Stuart just mentioned. I highly recommend everyone read it. It's phenomenal. It's frightening.
That was an excellent question. You can tell we all want to answer it. And of course, we teach about this. You know, I have courses on religion and media, and I encourage my students to think critically about the media where they get information and analyze media critically, see what the agenda might be with certain sources of media, and are they doing their deep investigation or not. So one of the things, because I'm looking at a lot of articles along with my students, one of the things that really annoys me is when I see reporters repeat old stories with old inaccuracies, and they just get repeated and repeated. And for the 30th anniversary, which is now, today, I saw one news outlet, television news outlet from a large city, and they just went back and got their all footage and their all so-called cult experts, and then they repackaged it and then just, okay, this is our 30th anniversary story. There was no new research at all. So, and I want to reiterate that it's important to, yes, look at primary sources. I mean, in '93, the press conference of the FBI and sometimes the ATF would give statements at press conferences, and the majority of the reporters, and I'm told this by reporters on the site, that they just took what the FBI was telling them, which was not the whole story or even the accurate story. But one journalist did go out and did his own investigation, and that was Dick Revis. And he ended up publishing the first book on what happened, which is titled The Ashes of Waco. It's a very fine book. But so I understand that reporters might not want to antagonize important sources like government spokespersons, but there are other avenues of information. And then lastly, I'll say that really check out the credentials of any experts that you consult, because when you have a story with an unconventional religious group, all the cult experts are going to come out, and they did in 1993 and the subsequent years. And those of us who are sociologists like Stuart, religious studies like myself, historians like Phil, we, as I mentioned, you know, we've been studying this for 30 years, and we don't get paid. We're not paid to be called experts. We're paid to be historians and sociologists and religious studies professors. And so we do this because we think it's important, and we have an obligation to teach not only our students but the general public to the best we can. So really analyze people you consult as so-called experts. See if they have any credentials on the topic that they're talking about. Okay. I think that was an excellent question. You gave us a lot to talk about, and I think we need to, before we wrap up this press conference, there's a Branch Davidian survivor, Kathy Schroeder, and she wants to make a brief statement. And she'll not be taking questions afterwards, it's just her statement.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I need to make a couple of statements. But first I need to remind you that sometimes the way documentaries get edited and sound bites get spliced together, it can make the words of the interviewee seem to have meaning that they were not originally intended to have. So I need to just state for the record that I would never condone or excuse the sexual exploitation of anyone, of any kind, regardless of age. Having been the victim of that myself at a tender young age of 9. So that's a horrible thought that can be said about me. Secondly, I do not agree with any violence of any kind against anyone. In my entire life, and I've been in the Air Force, guys, in my entire life, I have never fired a shot at any living being, not even an animal. I don't believe in violence. Thank you for your time. And because of recent events, I will not be speaking again publicly about the events in Waco in 1993. Thank you.
We love you, Kathy.